most impactful and overlooked things in your garden is the soil. So I'm here with Sam Tull today at City Farmers in San Diego, California, and we're going to talk about different soils that we natively have in this area, but just in general, this is going to be helpful for anybody who wants to learn how to test their soil, what they're looking out for, and what soil texture and mineral content has to do with having a healthy and thriving garden, whether you're looking for vegetables or ornamentals. So I'm excited to talk to you today because I think a lot of our clients and a lot of just general home gardeners really lack an understanding of soils.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through what do you commonly see, or how do you commonly help people identify some of the issues?
One of the best parts about working at a nursery, and it's working with the public. So we have people coming in, we have contractors, we have gardeners. And one thing that we see that is kind of trending and people that need a little bit of help and understanding is being able to look at the soils.
Yeah.
Because soils are such a huge part of this. It's the life in the soil, it's the balancing of the soils. Because with plants, there's half of the story we can see.
Yeah.
That's underneath or on top. And then underneath is all the roots. That's a whole nother story. So being able to keep both stories in line, because happy roots keep happy shoots. So that's a big part.
That.
Yeah.
That's great. So I know that you have this sample from one of your, I guess it's a client, would you call it? Or
a customer.
A customer, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of your customers gave you this sample to look at. Can we take a look?
Yeah.
And let us know what this is.
Yeah. This is a core, a soil core. And what it actually is used for is you plunge this down in your soil and you spin it without dumping all the soil. You pull it out and it tells a story of your soil.
Yeah.
It can tell us about the moisture, how deep the water is going, the makeup of the soils. See a couple different colors here. Because as we look at soils, your front yard soil might be different from your back because as they do grading and stuff.
Can you touch base on that just a little bit? Because I don't think a lot of people realize how much their soil has been disturbed.
Yeah.
You see that often, that the front is different than the back?
Oh, so much. Whether a house has been flipped or you inherit the house, you don't see that story. And sometimes you can't ask that whole story. I always tell people is go dig a couple holes, go in the front yard and dig a hole that's 1.5 feet deep and maybe 1 foot wide and kind of see what the soil is looking like.
Yep.
And then put a hose in there and fill it up with water and see how fast it drains.
Yes.
So drainage is big. And do the same in the backyard.
And that might be different.
It might be different.
Yes.
Yeah. You might look in one front yard is clay, backyard is rocky.
Yeah.
Both have different kind of qualities to them. So we have to think of them a little differently. And if you are confused, a good nursery should be able to help you walk you through it.
Like a good local nursery that knows the area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so you have the Soil Pro,
Yep.
and that's a standard size one, or is it the homeowner would buy, or this is something they would rent?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend buying them. They're not cheap. We loan this out. I only have 2, so I can't loan it out all the time.
Yeah.
But when I do a consult or something, this is one thing that I bring with us.
Okay.
It doesn't disturb the roots. It works really well, unless you have really rocky soil.
Yes.
But as I plunge this in, I hit rocks. I already know what's going on.
Yeah.
Rocks are actually pretty good for soil, but it's really cool to get a visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. How would you describe this to your customer?
Yeah, so when we look at soils, especially with San Diego, San Diego has actually decent soil because we can always amend it. We have a sandy clay soil. I always tell people if you have clay that you can make pottery out of, you're not planting in ground. Every other soil we can fix.
That's actually really good.
Yes.
Yeah, that clay is where it sticks together, and it's it looks like you bought clay from a store.
Yeah, you're gonna make some pottery. Become a potter. That's gonna be your backyard profession.
So you're don't even try.
Don't even try. Above ground, planting on swales and stuff.
Yeah.
That's where you're gonna look at that.
Okay.
And then being able to look at the makeup, because as we start planting, we might only be planting in the first foot of soil. And we want to make sure those roots can get nice and deep.
Yeah.
So we're seeing how deep is that water going, because roots follow water. And that's what makes a more drought tolerant plant.
Yes.
But looking at the soil, we'll see this topsoil. This looks a little bit more like a topsoil. It's darker. It has a little bit more finer particles in it.
It looks good to me.
This looks really good. I would look at this and be like, you guys have really nice soil.
Good to grow.
And then down below here, we get to that yellow sandy clay that we have. So we have 2 different soils. We want to make sure those roots can penetrate all the way through. They're just not going to grow here, hit a harder packed soil and flatten out.
Oh, right.
Yep. That's why we say dig about 1.5 feet. So it's just almost this whole length here.
So would you say this is a good sample and you would feel confident moving forward with a garden in this? Yeah.
And without borrowing this, people can just dig a couple inches down and kind of grab a sample from there. If you're going to send it off for soil testing or bring it in for someone to look at. Because so often people come in and they say, what should I do with my soil?
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know. I can't see your soil. So bring a handful of soil.
Got it. So customers will actually bring their soil in here and you would look at it and be able to take a general assessment of it.
Exactly.
And then do you also do consults or?
I do. So I have to put them on pause. I just had my second kid.
Okay, yeah, fair.
So work-life balance. So I typically do consults in winter and in summertime.
Okay.
An hour is a good time to kind of look everything.
Yep.
Also, if I'm not available, there's a lot of really good people that we can recommend.
Sure.
And this is kind of with any large project. Sometimes you just need someone to come in and like give you some good ideas.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of take it on from there.
Sure.
But just have that good foundation of where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, when we're looking at our client soil, we're looking for like, how are the plants already doing?
Yep.
But I do think there's just so much deeper that you can go into this, which is why I'm so happy to talk to you today. So for us, when we see a yard that's really not doing well and plants have been there for like 15 years and they're stunted, or like I expect this plant to be 15 feet and it's only 5, like what's going on? That's when I would be like, let's go for a soil sample. So typically what I would do is I would just send off a sample. So this is like one of our clients.
Okay.
And so we went ahead and we're like, things are not looking right. So let's go see what's happening in the soil. So I would love your take on what we got going here as well.
Yeah. So lab testing is really good if you're worried about toxicology. So if something was dumped in your soils, a little bit higher level than what the homeowner can do.
Yes.
So kind of what the homeowner can do is a pH test. They can put some soil and water and look at the sedimentary levels. But what's really nice with these tests is they have really nice lab equipment and you're gonna get stuff right on.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get probably some recommendations. And you said this is from a client?
This is from a company called Alluvial Soils in California. And then this is a client's yard. Okay. So somebody, they had professionally done the landscape, like they're doing everything right, but the plants are not thriving.
Perfect.
So it's like, we need help.
Yeah. So good for going with a local like testing that's in California.
Yes.
Instead of like an East Coast or Northern California, something that's a little more central that knows what our soils are, understands our makeup and our water and stuff.
Yeah.
But first thing I look at is pH is a big part of soils. San Diego, we're known for very alkaline soils.
Right, which is showing here that they're like way high.
0.8, yep.
And so is that almost toxic to plants? Because I do know as we go higher in the pH, it becomes harder for the plants to absorb nutrients.
Yes.
And so that's kind of like a big thing.
Yeah.
Like if you have a high pH, your plants aren't gathering that nutrient as well.
So just for everyone at home, pH is on a scale. The lower the number, the more acidic things are. The higher the number, the more basic they are, the more stable they are. So as we start looking at numbers above a 7.5 and higher, that means that those root systems, the little nodes on those roots, typically swell up and they can't take up nutrients.
Yeah.
So that homeowner might be fertilizing, they might be mulching. They're like, we're doing everything right.
Right.
But we're starting to see the growth. That's where in my mind, I'm like, we have to test the pH.
Got it. And so that's, I think, what we're seeing in this yard where they have plants that have been there for 10 years and like they look like they've just never grown.
Yeah.
So that's, then, you know, putting fertilizer, putting the mulch, doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if I brought that client here, what would you recommend to them? Because I know you sell a lot of different products that can help amend the soil.
So one thing is making sure the customer knows it's not their soil's terrible. It's the water that we put into it.
Okay.
So if you test our water, it's at an 8.5.
Which is really alkaline.
It is richly alkaline, yep.
Yeah.
So that water you buy, that's that alkaline water. You're kind of buying filtered tap water because our alkalinity is so high. But knowing it's the water we put in, and it's always good to test the pH maybe once or twice a year. With a simple at-home test, you don't have to send it off to a lab.
Sure, and that's something like this.
Yep.
That you can get here, and what is it, like, how much?
$10.
$10,
Yep.
something like that?
Somewhere around there. This is something that'll get you pretty close to where you need to be. You fill up that bottom with soil. It's about...
Oh yeah, like right there.
Yeah, half inch or so. And then you fill the rest up with tap water. Don't use bottled water unless you're watering your whole area with bottled water.
Okay.
You're going to put a pill in there. There's about 10 tests. That's going to last you
so you can
quite
use
a while.
this throughout the year or a few times a year.
Yep.
And if you're on a well, you're maybe...
You can test your well water.
Okay.
You can test your tap water. This is for soil.
This is for soil,
But we also have water testers.
Okay.
So it's good. Garden beds, we're testing it every season. If you're doing blueberries and stuff, it's probably every other month.
Yeah.
Backyard gardens and just ornamentals, twice a year is good.
Now, this sounds a little intensive for the casual gardener who's like, I just want to throw a tomato in.
Yep.
So do you still recommend something like being that involved in your garden? This is something I would do because I like to nerd out about it. But is this that important to your soil health that you would recommend pretty much everybody should be doing it?
I think if you're a gardener and you're just like, I'm fertilizing, things grow great, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But if you're struggling, and we do have these people that are just like, they come in, we do a soil test for them, and then months later, they're like, I'm fertilizing, everything we're doing isn't right. We test that pH again, and we notice it's still high, and we have to drop it. And when we drop pH, it's not a quick turnover, because what we use is called soil sulfur, and it's a mineral, and it takes a long time to break down in the soil. So it does take about a month and a half. You retest that soil.
Is this the sulfur?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it, I'm cool to touch it and everything?
It's pelletized, so it's pretty stable.
Oh, this is cool. Okay, so this is the soil sulfur, and you would put this in to help drop the pH.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And a little bit of this goes a long way. It's actually only 3 pounds per 100 square feet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're probably holding a pound. You don't want to overdo it. But we put this in the soil. You amend it in. You amend it as deep as you can when you're planting a plant. As you're digging that hole and amending that existing soil, you're adding this. A couple months later, you test again with this. Hopefully it's dropped enough. But that's how we drop pH.
Is there a season that is better to do soil amendments, or just whenever you're ready?
In San Diego, we have beautiful weather.
Yeah,
so whenever you're ready. Once again, if it's too hot to dig a hole, we're not planting.
Yeah.
We don't amend then.
Okay.
Just about any time of the year.
Okay, cool. All right. No, that's great. So that's been super helpful. So we're mostly talking about dropping the pH because of where we live.
Yep.
Obviously, if you wanted to raise the pH, you would also use amendments for that.
We would. But the only time I've seen people that have the pH is too high is they're using a lot of coffee grounds.
Oh, okay.
Which in soils, we kind of watch out because there's caffeine in coffee that affects the biology of the health. So a little bit of coffee grounds is good, not a lot.
Never thought about that. So plants can get like buzz off.
Overcaffeinated.
Overcaffeinated.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Especially with young seedlings, it's not great. And we make sure that the coffee grounds we're composting.
Got
if you
it.
can,
So
compost, put it in the garden.
So when you have coffee grounds, you're sticking them in the compost pile, kind of work that caffeine out, and then you're just getting the acidic aspects that you want and not the caffeine that's going to drive your plants a little bonkers.
Yeah. University of Massachusetts did, I believe, a really good study on this.
Okay.
You can look up University of Massachusetts on coffee grounds.
Okay.
They have some really good studies. But yeah, San Diego, only time it's high is coffee grounds, or they add a lot of peat moss, which is more for berries and stuff.
Yeah.
But typically our alkalinity is always so high that we're leaning on sulfur.
Okay.
So if you see those recommendations of using lime raises pH, we don't need to do that here in San Diego.
Yep. Right. Yep. And then spreading this, do you just like toss it out, or is like you get one of the little seed spreaders?
Big areas where you're dealing with like a whole, trying to put in lawn in properly and all these other things, you're going to use one of these, like a seed spreader.
Yeah. Okay.
Besides that, just throwing it by hand.
And it's fine to like hit the plant leaves and stuff like that.
So ideally when we're doing this, there's not a lot of plants there yet.
Okay.
But if we do need to drop the pH, ideally we're going into the soil.
Okay.
And mixing about an inch or two. We're not trying to disrupt roots.
Got it.
With water, it's going to leach through. And
so you might hand toss and then just like
shake off your plants.
Shake off your plants and then agitate it a bit. Okay.
Yeah, but a little on the plants isn't bad.
That's super helpful.
Yep.
Okay, so just to summarize, if you're in San Diego or Southern California and you have alkaline soil, you're going to want to use some sort of sulfur to help bring that pH down, and that's going to help the plants absorb more nutrients.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Okay, so let's, unless you have somewhere to go, let's talk about this.
Yeah, covered pH, which is great. We have that kind of dig a hole and look at the soil. What happens when we want to look up the makeup of the soil? So we want to see what's actually in those soils.
And soils are made out of sand, silt, and clay.
So typically sand, clay is silt, and organic matter.
Oh.
So organic matter, sand, and silt are kind of what we're looking at.
Organic matter, sand, and silt.
Yep.
Okay.
Best way to do that, you can always visualize. When I ever tell someone to go look at soils, pick a handful up and look at it. Even potting soil, it's good to kind of look, kind of feel what it feels like.
Yeah.
But at home, easy one to do is you get a glass, it's a nice mason jar. You fill it up 3/4 of the way, halfway with soil. You fill up the rest with water. You sit there and you shake it. You let it sit for about 10 minutes. What's really cool with hydraulics is it will separate the soils. So what you'll see is sand, larger particles, which is really good for drainage. You'll see silt, which is clay, and then you'll see organic matter.
Okay.
So if we have a soil that's our backyard and it's never been touched, there's not gonna be any organic matter.
Got it. It's just because of where we live.
Yep.
But if you live somewhere that had tons of like leaf drop and stuff like that, if you lived in a forest,
you're surrounded by trees.
You're gonna have that. But in your typical suburban area,
San Diego, not a lot.
You're not gonna have much at all. And that's a big portion of why I think gardens struggle and why we're such big components of putting mulch in our yards, because it helps, break down those pieces into the landscape with that organic matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually can see like the division pretty well, actually.
Perfect. So this one's been sitting around for a couple days. So it's set out a little bit, but we'll see the discoloration. So you'll see stuff floating. That's organic material. There's some sand down here. We see the silt above. But this is telling me we have equal parts sand, equul parts silt. We're missing equal parts organic matter.
Got it.
And this would be for a garden bed.
Floating stuff.
Yep. We got some roots in there, a piece of bark, maybe a worm or two. What that tells me is for this garden bed, we need to add a third organic material to that soil.
Got it. Okay, so 3 equal parts is the key. And that's a very simple test you can do. Grab your soil, drop it in a mason jar, fill the rest with water, and see what your divisions are.
Exactly.
Always the organic floats, and then always the silt layer?
Yep.
Okay, and this is
sand.
the sand layer.
Yes. And so what we'll see is over time, as soils get old, so let's just say you amend a soil or you buy a new soil, it's light and fluffy. You raise your garden bed or that wine barrel that you're putting your citrus in.
Yeah.
It's all the way to the top. Over time, that soil shrinks.
Yeah.
The meaning of organic matter is it dissipates into nothing. So we're always losing organic matter because it's breaking down and feeding our plants. So it'll shrink. However much it shrinks, that's how much more organic matter we have to put into it.
Got it. And when you're putting that organic matter, say you are like have a citrus in a pot and it shrinks 3 or 4 inches. Does that mean you're tossing 4 inches of mulch, or you're talking about like compost?
Yes.
And then are you going to mix that in, or are you just going to throw it on top and let it work its way back down?
So for existing plants that already have a root system, we can't really add compost to the soil. And what we look at is for a container is however big a plant is how big the roots are. So if I take a tomato plant, it is this big. That means there's this much root system in this pot.
Yes.
So that's one way to tell if it needs to be upsized and certain things.
Sure.
But what we would end up doing, let's just say this is our citrus plant. I might notice my roots are really wrapped around. It needs to go in a bigger pot.
Yeah.
But if I am not trying to do that, what we're going to do is loosen up that soil a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and add some topsoil, something that has those 3 equal parts.
So you're going to straight up pull the citrus out of the pot.
You're going to have to. Yep.
Okay. Got
because
it. Yep.
the more that soil shrinks.
And you don't want to just top it on the top. You got to. Okay. Cool.
Topping on the top is going to help with evaporation. What we're trying to do is add a little organic matter to the soil.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of weigh out, does this need a bigger pot or is it staying in the pot? But if it's staying in the pot, a little compost on top is going to hold that moisture. But we might notice is over time that plant's going to diminish.
Yeah.
Because it's with sandy soils, water's running through really fast.
Yep.
We don't have biology in that soil.
Yep.
Because there's no organic matter. The roots might get root bound.
Yeah.
That's what we have to outweigh. As we talk about garden soils and raised beds, if it drops 2 inches, 2 inches, 3 inches of compost, we're mixing all the way through and then planting again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's super helpful. And then I don't think we touched base on this.
Yeah. What does it look like?
Calcium?
Yeah. There you go. Feel it? Is it heavy?
Not really. Not for what I expect it to be.
Yeah.
Okay. It's heavy.
It's heavy. It's so heavy. But for what you're looking at, compared to like flour or something else.
I'm not a baker.
Yeah. So as we look at soils, especially soils that we're growing really fast in, this could be container gardening, in-ground gardening, all these different things where things are being grown really fast. What we lose out of that soil over time is minerals.
Sure.
And so I was looking at this test as we're going back to this. It says secondary micronutrients, and these are all minerals.
Yep.
Zinc, sulfur, copper, boron. We need these things in soil, but we only need a very little amount. We don't need big amounts.
Right, okay.
You can throw some pennies in your soil. There's all these different ways of doing it.
Really?
But we try to figure out how long does this stuff last? How much do we need? There's not really spread rates for these things.
Yeah.
But what we typically use for micronutrients and minerals is something called rock dust azomite. This mineral is kind of a broad spectrum mineral.
Okay.
So it actually has just about everything you need in this one. And there's other ones like gypsum. We always talk about gypsum in soils. That's mostly calcium.
Okay.
But it's missing a lot of the other minerals. So yes, we can add gypsum, but we're also adding rock dust.
Okay.
So sometimes soils that are really mulchy or that are just our sandy soils, that is only one part of the story. We need to start adding other things to it.
Sure.
So rock dust azomite's great. I had this garden beds maybe twice a year. You can always sprinkle it on the top of things in the ground. Same with that sulfur, we're mixing in a couple inches as water it leaches through.
Okay.
Once again, a little bit of this goes a long way.
Sure. So you would buy this in a bag
Yep.
and hand distribute it.
Yep.
And if it gets on your plants, shake it or wash it off.
Wash it off, yep.
Got it. So it's not like fertilizer where you're going to burn and...
Not with the minerals, rock dust, soil sulfur, that's what we're worried about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So that you're just going to spread on the top and water it in.
Mix it in.
You're going to mix it in
Yeah.
just the first few inches.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Wow. That was super helpful.
Here at the nursery, we do classes on soils. If you go to our website, we'll have a whole list of classes. Every month's a little different. My specialty, I really love soils and fertilizers because that's what makes things grow. We do orchids, we do chicken raising, all these different things.
Oh, that's so great. And you guys should definitely check out City Farmers. Sam can answer a lot of your questions if you are a home gardener or
Person of the land.
a person of the land. Yeah, if you're into agriculture, whatever. This was super helpful. So thank you for walking me through different ways that people can look at their soil. And it is so important. And I think a lot of people would really benefit from knowing this stuff.
Very good. Well,
So
thank you.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
We'll see you later. Thank you for watching.